6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
No. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
All right, here we are live, noon to 2 today on a special edition of This, That, and the Other radio show. We are simulcasting all over Straight Earth via YouTube and also on Facebook. And I've got today friend and guest, and somebody turn the band down for God's sakes. Ttto. This, That, and the Other radio show. Right now we are live at Dirty Radio Classics. And let's get that going. Look at that, live here, Dirty Radio Classics, TPF here, Dirty Radio Dead FM Channel 2, again, Dirty Radio Classics. And we got a special edition today. I am simulcasting, so while you'll be seeing on the YouTube the guest, beautiful mug, we'll also be broadcasting on the air because I've got the face for radio. The author of a brand new book that just came out, and in light of recent news, Jack Russell, founding member of Great White, Dante Fox, all sorts of good stuff. I mean, the guy's been in the business for decades and just announced his retirement. And this all happened when the book came out, which was just recently. It also hit Amazon #1 new release as well as current releases and up the charts at Barnes & Noble. The True Tale of Mr. Bone, a rock and roll narrative by Ttto and Jack Russell. Let's bring her in. Bring her beautiful mug in. And let me get some of this. Hey, what's happening, Kate?
Hey.
I'm going to get some of this loud music out of here so we can talk. How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
You know, I'm not so bad for the shape I'm in. Not as beautiful as you are, but I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm glad that we were able to do this, and we're doing it at a special day and time here on Monday here at Dirty Radio Classics. So we're on the air, on the radio, as well as right here on YouTube and the Facebook and all that good stuff. So you wrote a book, huh?
I did. I finally did.
I mean,
always wanted to.
You know, we'll go all over the place, no rhyme or reason, because, I mean, while I have some notes here, I just want to kind of chit-chat about how you even got into writing this book. But there's so much more about you, you know, and I feel like you've been kind of evolving over the last few years. So I've known you for a long time as Chip Zinoff's wife, you know, but that's just a small segment of who you are. And the last years, you've been kind of blossoming, and I'm like, "Who's this girl?" I don't, you know, she's the Witness Protection Program. She's different. I learned some things about you, about the industry, as they say. And by the way, you can say anything off the cuff. You can, if you feel like you got to be passionate and cuss, you can do so. Okay. We're all adults here, so. So where do we start?
I don't know. There's so much to cover.
There really is. Well, let's get into this book.
Yeah.
Are you like a published author? Why did Jack Russell? How did you guys get together?
Okay, so Robbie Lochner, who's Jack's guitarist, approached me several times over the course of a few years because we toured together. I toured with them, I think, 2016. And so they got to know me a little bit. And of course, my husband, Chip Znev, who we were also on the road with, talked me up a little bit. I have a strong literary background. I went to Oxford for creative writing. I was a rock journalist for a British rock publication for a long time. I had my own column. So it's not like I wasn't equipped to do this. So I think Chip kind of slipped it in there to Robbie that I could be a potential writer. So when Robbie asked, I said no. And then as the years went by, he kept asking, kind of in jest, like, you'd be a great pick to write Jack's book. I'd say no. And then finally, September 2020, I was asked again, and I had just gotten certified as a wardrobe stylist. I spent almost 2 years with the New York Institute of Art and Design getting certified to handle like vintage fashion, to be officially an image consultant. So it's like branding, marketing, all that stuff, but also working with clothing. And so I thought I will never, ever do anything that requires so much work again. And I said no. But that night I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt like something was wrong. And I realized I think I need to do this. So I said yes.
Why did you say no so many times?
No one's really asked me that.
Listen, it's this show. There'll be a lot of questions nobody has ever asked you before. Some better, some worse. I don't know. But I mean, you kind of fought it. Why did you fight it? Because I'm not going to put the answer into your mouth, but was it because you were like, wow, this would be a really big undertaking? Like, yes, I want to do it, but oh my God, that's a big mountain to climb. Or
I mean, okay, so right away I'll say no. I said no because this sounds horrible. I wasn't interested. I didn't know the story that was there to be told either. No one explained that to me. So I think that's why it changed so drastically overnight in 2020 is because I said no again. Yeah. But then Chip explained to me the story that was at hand. And I went, oh, this is a guy who really has something to say. And he's been kind of beat on for a long time because of a pretty historical event that happened in 2003. Sure. Yeah, I think I want to help him say what he needs to say.
So Robbie wants you to do it. He's got a feeling that you'll be the one to help inspire Jack to tell the story. What's that first meeting like with him? Because I think for you to be, well, tell me the dynamic. So it's Jack's autobiography, but you're the author. So how does that dynamic work? And what's your role in putting out a book like this, where it's Jack's words, it's Jack's stories, but what's your role in it?
Okay. I did everything. I did everything except live the life. So we underwent 2 years worth of, a year and a half to 2 years of really extensive interviews. I have hours upon hours of those interviews that I had to transcribe. And so if someone were to say, how was your fifth birthday party? You might remember 2 or 3 things and then just give me a basic idea. So my job was to take the basic idea of what was said and use his language, but craft it into poetry to truly make it sound like, just put beautiful words together and make a very basic story sound perfect.
So will there be some excerpts where, because I read the preview that you sent me, it was like 45 pages and it was some cuts of different parts of the book, because the book is like what, 3 or 4 parts, different segments, and is that correct?
Yep.
So I get a sampling of everything, and there was a part that I read that I don't know Jack very well, but I've done shows with him and my interactions with him have always been nothing but great. But I was reading the words and I'm like, am I reading Jack's words or am I reading Kate's words? And so how did you figure out that dynamic where it's still Jack's story? Because Jack has a very different way of speaking, where you come in sort of from the outside and kind of organize it a little bit and put it all together. But are we reading Jack's words?
You are not reading Jack's words word for word. You are reading the stories that he told me. And some of the times I left together. I left in chunks things that he said because it was just so perfectly delivered with a little bit of sass. So that's where the element of him is still in it.
How did you get in that first meeting when you start going, hey, Jack, I want to help you write your book? Well, first of all, has Jack been thinking about writing this book for some time? I mean, he's been in the biz forever.
Yeah.
Probably finding himself in the end of his career as he gets older, dealing with some health issues. We'll talk about some of that stuff. And it's one of those things you go, hey, maybe I should write a book. A lot of those guys from that era have. How did you guys get to the bond and trust of one another for him to say, hey, I'm going to give you the stories and you're going to, put them to paper? I mean, that sounds like a big, number one, it's a big undertaking for you to do. I mean, these stories go back 40, 50 years, but what a trust factor you guys must have in order for him to ensure that you're going to tell the story the right way for him.
I guess so. I mean, maybe Chip being my husband has something to do with how Jack decided to trust me. But at the same time, maybe Jack, I mean, thinking about it, I'm not sure he had a choice because he went through 2 other writers before working with me and they fell through. They definitely dropped the ball. I heard about it. Won't talk about it, but they didn't know what they were doing. So I think it was just, okay, we're going to give this a go and we'll see how far it goes. And we ended up going all the way. And the first meeting initially was over the phone. And I didn't realize how much of this project I would be taking on. I kind of thought that all other elements of the book were going to be figured out and I would just be writing the manuscript. I would be handling the words. No, I did everything. I did everything in this book except from take the actual photo, which was done by Mark Weiss. And I chose Mark. I sent him a mood board. I even set up the location where they were going to shoot. I organized everything. So I'm truly behind this book.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty heavy though. So how many parts to the book are there? Are there 4 parts, as I understand?
There are 4 parts. Yeah.
4 parts. So go through, 1 through 4. What's kind of the cliff notes of each part? What's going to happen in this book when I open up the page? There's a foreword by Lita Ford. Table that first question. Why Lita Ford for the foreword?
Lita Ford. Yeah. So, oh gosh, I went through so many options for who could write the foreword.
Mark Kendall didn't want to write it. He would.
No, I'd never.
Right, so Lita Ford.
Yeah. So I considered Bret Michaels. I considered Tom Kiefer. I considered a bunch of very relevant characters in Jack's life. But Lita, I'm a female. I'm an author. And you see a lot of rock and rollers get their stories penned by male authors. So I just thought how perfect it would be to bring it full circle with another female voice. And that's broadens the audience as well in the rock scene.
Do they have a history together where, they're close enough that she would be able to write? Because I would think that if you're going to bring somebody in to help, co-write the book, ghostwrite the book, and somebody contribute to the forward, that there's got to be a pretty tight bond there.
Yeah. I mean, they've toured a number of times together. So yeah. Lita was pretty enthusiastic about it. It was really tough to track her down, actually. It took me 3 years.
Wow.
I never thought it would happen. I was like, this is just not going to happen. So.
Well, let's go through the parts of the book. So there's 1 through 4. Yep. And, so take me through the journey. I open up the book. I'm reading the foreword by Lita Ford. And at the beginning, there is, sort of an apology that starts off with an apology from Jack.
Yep.
And, that's pretty heavy because it really sets the tone for the book. I mean, obviously 50 years in the business, there's a lot to talk about. And it feels like, that incident at the Station Casino the Station nightclub. There's Station casinos in Vegas.
Yeah. I know what you're doing.
The Station nightclub it makes it the focal point of the book kind of out of the gate. But take me through these different parts 1 through 4.
Sure. So do you want me to comment there on Jack's apology?
Let's start there because it's right out of the gate. It's a pretty heavy message.
Okay, so the thing about this book is that it's Jack's story beyond what happened at the Station nightclub. So that's a very important thing to put out there because Jack has really been pinpointed as the cause of that, wrongfully pinpointed as that. So he has been wanting others to see him as the man that he truly is. So obviously we can't evade the fire. So it is in there. The reason for the apology at the beginning of the book is because legally, when he was going through the trial, he had possible criminal charges over him. So he was under Fifth Amendment. He was exercising that, and that was directed to him. So he legally could not speak out and say he was sorry that it even happened because it could be considered that he's admitting guilt.
Gotcha. And so you kind of, but I mean, it was addressed right out of the gate, and for me, it kind of set the tone. But it's it's also the elephant in the room that's kind of dealt with immediately, and then he, and you guys go through that journey later on in the book. But kind of summarize what parts 1 through 4 might.
So part one is Jack's upbringing. It's his childhood. It's how he got into drugs. It's how he got into music. And part 2 is becoming Great White. It's getting there. It's getting the band together. And then part 3 is really the last 20 years of his life that happened after the fire. So we're talking health issues, the split with him and Mark Kendall, a lot of court transcripts I got to read through regarding the name of the band. And then part 4 is, it's funny. Okay, so part 4 is all about the interviews, all the people in Jack's life who contributed their take on Jack the man. And I didn't know initially how I was going to put those interviews in the book, but there's so many of them, and each person I interviewed, from Kip Winger, Jacob Bunton, Ed McPherson, Jack's lawyer throughout the trial, they all had a different thing to bring to the table. So it was hard to figure out exactly where within the whole manuscript I should place each one. So I just placed them together as part 4. So that's why part 4 is entitled What They Said.
Gotcha. And how did you choose? So, I had some gigs with Sean McNabb over the weekend, and he is part of the Great White history. I mean, obviously, people that are affiliated with the band. Let me get my beautiful mug up here. You sought out and interviewed, which makes sense. Were there people that you requested to be a part of the book or make a statement or, talk about a story that perhaps declined to be a part of it or didn't want to be a part of it?
There were a few people who said no, but I see now how it never made sense to ask them in the first place. I asked my friend Matt Nathanson, who's a singer-songwriter. He's not in the rock scene. He's more of a singer-songwriter genre. But he loves classic rock. He loves that era of music. So I thought maybe he would have something to say, but it makes sense that he would say no. So in that respect, I'm glad that the people I asked who said no. It never made sense to begin with.
Did you reach out to any of the former band members? Because despite all the drama, no, you didn't. I mean,
nah.
But do you feel that there's a part of the story? Because Mark Kendall has commented since Jack's retirement, and I'll post that.
I haven't seen that
press release. He did. He essentially said, we're always going to be brothers, and Jack, essentially never did, anything to hurt me or something. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but yeah, let me. Why not? While we're here, we're on live radio, Dirty Radio.fm Channel 2, Dirty Radio Classics. My guest is Cale Doty, the author of the Mr. Bone book about, and it's a longer title, but I'm Googling right now so we can kind of talk about this. Let me see, Mark Kendall, if I can find it here. They have the word, but he essentially said positive stuff about his retirement, and that at the end of the day, they're brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, words are words, actions are actions. So I don't know if Mark or any of the other guys have reached out to Jack since his retirement. If it's okay, can I post the apology from Jack that we'll see right out of the gate?
Yes.
This is from a certified copy here that I got in an unmarked envelope. This is from Jack Russell. This is right after the forward. And, he starts off saying, I'm sorry for the empty seat at your table, and that there's one less person to pass around a basket of warm bread. So he goes on to address what happened at the station nightclub so many years ago. And, there's been Dateline and NBC different documentaries on the incident, and certainly a lot of mudslinging about who, went to jail, who should have gone to jail. When you guys got into that, was that what's the feedback you get? Because you got to kind of push, you got to peel that onion a little bit. Let me ask you this. Were you in charge of sort of directing what the stories would be?
What do you mean the stories would be from Jack's life?
I mean, like, what do you guys, we're writing a book. What are we diving into here? You have to address the station. That's a key factor. And then of course you go back into the history and, but how did you choose what stories you would tell, what stories you wanted to tell? I mean, did you go, hey, Jack, what do you want to say here? What's this about? What are we doing?
Okay. So when this book was done, I will tell you, I literally and figuratively shut the book on the past 4 years dealing with this book because it was so stressful. So I really have to go back in my head right now to think of some things. But, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. From the middle to the end, there's always a problem that needs a resolution. And the resolution helps get to the end. Right? So that's your little format. So with Jack, I needed to know, where were you born? All the basic beginning type of stuff. So from there, you just kind of follow along. And as cliche as it is, your heart's going to tell you where you need to go next. There were a lot of little details that I wish I could have fit in there, but they were standalone memories. So the song Wasted Rock Ranger, do you know it?
Absolutely, of course. Yeah, I mean, I sort of feel like that's his theme song.
Okay,
right?
Good call. So he talked about how that came together, but it was so brief that there was no place for me to put it in the flow of everything else.
Gotcha. Were there things that because I had read that Jack said, this isn't really a book, even though it's a book that's going to have some hard words in it, some difficult stories, but that he chose to not really, dish dirt really. And he kind of said, listen, if anybody's got any dirt, it's me, which I thought was very humbling. But did you guys, is there a B-roll sitting on the floor, the cutting room floor of stuff that didn't make it? And what would be some of the reasons some of those stories didn't make it?
There might be a B-roll. Yeah. Jack is a really nice person and he doesn't want to hurt anyone. So it's part of his character that is so special, that shines brighter than who he is on stage under the lights with a microphone in his hand. And that's really what this book is about as well. So he didn't want to hurt feelings. You know, he wants to be honest and say certain things happened and this is how he felt about them. He wants to take responsibility for a lot of the ways that he made others feel. But I don't think he really wanted to throw anybody under the bus and cause more drama.
Gotcha. You had mentioned Jack doesn't want to hurt people. Apparently I did a lot of homework last night. I was up super late last night, by the way. Thank God for the filter on the StreamYard. But Mark Kendall went on to say, when I addressed this earlier from the Blabbermouth article, and I quote, "Jack Russell has never done anything to hurt me. He just had an addiction. He's still a brother. It's unfortunate because he's such a talent. He had one of the best rock voices ever. He could sing anything, beautiful ballads, anything hard, heavy hitting. He had the range, good quality voice, just the greatest ever. So it's a little tough because we made a band together, just me and him. When he first met me, he auditioned for my band. And then he said, why don't you and me get away from this deal and go make our own thing? And so the brotherhood was just amazing from the get-go." So, you know, those are words from Mark Kendall in response to Jack's retirement. And I actually have that message, which came, was this days before or after the book? I think just after the book got released, he announced the retirement. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fluke, by the way. That was a total coincidence. Book was released on a Monday and the announcement came out on a Wednesday.
Gotcha. To my fan and friends, I'm reading a statement from Jack Russell here. This was published everywhere. And we're also streaming live at my YouTube at Drummer Troy, as well as on Facebook. And of course, we are simulcasting to Dirty Radio Classics here at dirtyradio.fm. My guest, Cale Doty, author of the Mr. Bone book about Jack Russell. To my fans and friends, it's with the heaviest hearts that I must announce my retirement from the road after a recent diagnosis of Lewy body dementia, LBD, and multiple system atrophy, MSA. I'm unable to perform at the level I desire and the level you deserve. Words cannot express my gratitude for the many years, decades, I should say. I mean, he's been around since the 70s, making music. Gratitude for the many years of memories, love, and support. Thank you for letting me live my dreams. You've made my life a wonder. Love, Jack. So that was a retirement message, and we addressed what Mark Kendall had responded to. And I think it's pretty good because those guys obviously are not in a good space because of, you know, the litigation, two different bands. They were one of the first bands to have multiple versions out there on the road. And I guess it's nice to see that when Jack is announcing his retirement due to these severe health issues, that Mark's at least attempting to say something positive and, you know, sort of maybe put out the olive branch. Do you know if those guys have spoken outside of attorneys and nonsense or outside of the press?
Jack has told me a number of times, because I asked a number of times to see if I would get a different response, but no, he always said, I called him a few years ago. He never picked up. So Jack has tried, and apparently Mark has just not responded. I mean, maybe things could change, though. Story's not over.
The story's not over. Let me ask you this. When we speak of Great White, the incident in Rhode Island is sort of just a big part of the timeline. Do you think that he was able to address that and sort of clear the air about what happened? And how do you think readers might view the situation now that Jack's been able to speak about it in a book uninterrupted?
Gosh, I don't know how readers are going to translate it. I do feel that this is something Jack's wanted to get off of his chest for many years now. He's wanted to speak to the public, and I think he feels pretty darn good about it. You know, I don't really know where to go with this, to be honest with you. I was always really nervous about how to approach questions relating to the fire. I had some people from West Warwick, Rhode Island on Facebook request me a couple of weeks back, and I knew that they were probably somehow linked to the fire, and I was a little bit worried about what this connection was going to result in. And they did have some sassy things to say on the comments when I released the book, but I haven't addressed them at all. I mean, all I can say is that apology at the beginning of the book says enough. And regarding details involved with the actual fire, I spoke with Ed McPherson, who represented Jack during that time, and there are so many details. I mean, these details ran me through the ground because it was a lot of jargon that I did not understand, a lot of legal jargon, but there are details that I don't see how anyone could possibly say, Jack, you did this, when I know what I know from that case. I mean, did you know, for instance, there were 350 people max who were allowed in that venue and 500 were there that night?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I got the phone call from a friend of mine when that happened.
Yeah.
I played that venue with my tramp.
You did?
I did. And, the thing that was odd to me was when I heard that it was, from Pyro, I was like, why would you not save the money on the pyro for a venue like that? That just, my first thought was like, why are they doing pyro in that venue? And obviously Jack's going to take the bulk of the hits because it's his name on the marquee outside. Yeah. And everything falls under that umbrella, for better or for worse. And it sucks because he's not the the guy that has the training, but he employed the guys that are supposed to have the training. But I think so many steps and so many people along the way just dropped the ball on that. It never had to happen. But my first guess was when I walked in there, be like, yeah, leave the pyro in the trailer. We're not doing it tonight. Because it was just such a small stage. And, I mean, you could touch from the drum rise, you can almost touch the ceiling.
Could you? Wow.
Yeah, it had a drop ceiling. It was short. It just didn't make sense to me, But I don't think, I don't personally go, well, that's Jack's fault. I think there were a lot of people there that just dropped the ball. But do you think this book I don't know how you, redeem, but do you think that people understand, go, yeah, you know what? This wasn't just you. This was unfortunately a bunch of mistakes. And listen, the club dropped the ball, with everything they had going on there before they even stepped foot into that club too.
100%. Yeah.
And they're, a ton of the responsibility. You have to provide a safe place, and you have to have somebody there that will say, yeah, no, you guys can't do this. I know there's a fire marshal there. I mean, there's a lot of corrupt shit that went on with that place. And it just
shouldn't. Oh, yeah. Yes.
And we can get into a whole Dateline here, But I mean, do you think I don't want to say exonerated, but do you think that Jack could be, after reading this and his words about, from his point of view, he could be exonerated from this event?
I think so. As a writer, that was certainly my intention.
It's heavy. I know. Let me ask you this. Let's shift gears a little bit. Some of the people that are putting out these books, John Corabi, does an audiobook. Might there be an audiobook? And if Jack can't do it, who do you think would be somebody that could do the audiobook besides myself? I'm super busy.
Right. Yeah, I'll keep you in mind though.
Right. Hey.
Yeah.
Red leather, yellow leather, red leather. See, I can speak.
That's good.
You do that in the theater?
Yeah.
All right, anyway.
Or like Mama made me mash my M&Ms, right?
There you go. And she sells seashells down by the seashore, right?
It's very good.
But I mean, who do you think would be a good person to read this? Or maybe multiple people read some of the parts, that are either affiliated or not?
Oh yeah, believe me, I've thought about all of this. So obviously I know I'm not the star of the show, but I know the manuscript the best. So I was considering, okay, worst case scenario, I'll do it. But I think Dee Snider would be a great option. He's so theatrical and charismatic. And I did consider that maybe each chapter could be read by a different rock and roll character.
Yeah. No, Dee would be great. I mean, he does voiceovers for a lot of those 80s shows, and he's got a good, certainly great delivery. And delivers what he's saying with some passion. So that could be cool. Is there talks about maybe doing that, or when do you kind of go, hey, maybe we should do an audio version of this?
Well, I mean, I'm dealing with the first initial wave of press for the book being out, so I have to kind of ride that for a little bit. I think maybe in November I will move forward with how that's going to play out, the audiobook version. And like, it's one thing at a time. I'm very overwhelmed right now because Jack's not taking any interviews. So everything is falling on me, and I'm not unprepared to do it. I'm a little nervous and it's definitely made me very busy, but I think maybe November is the point where I will,
determine. Well, I appreciate you coming on this, that, and the other radio show here at dirtyradio.fm, channel 2 Dirty Radio Classics. K.O. Doty, author of the book here, and we're looking at it right now, The True Tale of Mr. Bone, a rock and roll narrative, and a story about Jack Russell, his life, the good, the bad, the ugly, with a forward by Lita Ford. You guys are making some waves online here. See, number one, new releases. And so this book just came out a week ago today, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Gotcha. And it looks like new releases, it's number one, and bestsellers number two. And then on Barnes & Noble, it's tracking as a bestseller. Yeah. Are those all digital, or are those hard copy versions?
So it's hard copy.
Is there a digital version?
The ebook should be out. I mean, so those files from publisher to seller outlets, everyone generates those digital files at a different rate. So it usually takes up to 8 business days. So I would say that the ebook should be available at some point this week.
Right on. So these are hard physical copies. You guys are making some waves out there. That's really good.
Thank you.
So there's been some rumors about how Jack is really doing. And I had heard that, and this is very common with what he's been diagnosed with, that it's often misdiagnosed as something else. And so he's being treated for one thing and he's not responding to that treatment. So they up that treatment again, because he's not reacting because that's not what he's dealing with. And from what I heard, that is what's started sort of some of the downfall in Texas in those dates. He was on some medication for something that he didn't have. He was misdiagnosed. And it's a pretty heavy thing he's dealing with. How is he doing a week since he's announced that, almost a week since he announced his retirement? Because it was obviously very sudden. However, we could see the decline over the last year and a half while he was trying to get a handle as to what was going on. What's he doing?
He's okay. I spoke with him. When's the last time I spoke with him? The last time I spoke with him was to tell him we made the Barnes & Noble bestseller list. So that was about 7 days ago. And he sounded wonderful. I mean, he has his moments. Sometimes he's really tired. Sometimes he's too tired to speak. So I end up speaking with his wife, Heather. But Jack's always in the room. I can hear him in the back, communicate to her, and then she talks to me. But I'd say overall that with everything that's been happening recently, with the somber news of his retirement and his health issues, he's doing pretty good. He's Jack Russell.
He's Jack Russell. Do you know what his plans are? Obviously he's got to deal with treating what's going on with him. And he's pulled the plug on the music career. Do you know what his plans are? Is he going to be able to retire on that boat, or what's?
I don't know. I mean, I spent 2 years asking him every question on the planet. Yeah. I made the guy cry a few times during our interviews.
Sure.
So I don't press on anymore.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. If you guys had some emotional moments, talking about a career of highs and lows for, 5 decades.
Can I take it from there?
It's all you.
So, yeah, the one moment I really remember him breaking down over is talking about his mom and losing his mom and losing his dad. And it choked me up. all of these things I didn't know I was in for after I said, yes, I'll write your book. I felt really bad as a writer and as the friend that I became. I felt so bad having to ask him more about the fire because he's been bombarded with that for years. And he was the face of that unfairly for years. So that really was not a place I wanted to go. So that was a hard interview. And I think we only did one solid interview for that. That was about an hour long. I usually kept it to an hour so that I wouldn't tire him out. And believe me, it's less to transcribe. He just seemed, during that conversation, he just seemed like it was the same stuff he's always said before. So it's not like he had to tap into anything further. But, because I became such good friends with him over the course of this time, I was able to identify with him in certain regards. So that's where my voice stepped in to help his be louder, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, of course, taking all of those thoughts and memories of a very long career and trying to kind of organize them. And, because I don't know what I did yesterday. So I couldn't imagine having to, come up with the stories and then find a way to display them on paper properly. It sounds like that's what your gig was.
I mean, so on a lighthearted note, I will tell you that for an example of what I dealt with, bless his heart, Jack, love you. But I remember asking him, hey, so how was it touring with Bret Michaels in the early 90s? This was the response. Yeah, it was pretty good. Everyone was in a good mood, played great. Man, we had a really good time. That's where it stopped. So it didn't really matter how much I pressed on for. That's all that I got. So that's where a lot of research on my part came into play. I had to reach out to people who were on that tour. I had to find out who was on that tour other than the band itself, other than Bret. And I had to make contact. I had to get the interviews. I had to do basic Google research. Yeah.
Gotcha. Hearing some of the stories and some of the, the stories with the women back in the day, you being married to Chip, who's been in the industry for as long, if not longer, than Jack Russell.
As long as I've been alive.
Yeah, right. Do you have any, like, when you hear those stories, do you hear, because my wife is not a part of the industry at all.
Okay.
And so sometimes these stories, she's like, we'll watch documentaries on rock and roll that's on, direct TV. And I'll kind of get a look like, so is that what it's really like? And I'm like, you're in the industry, so kind of get it. But I mean, hearing some of the stories, and I'm sure Jack has some stories. You ever take a look at Chip going, Chip, so go ahead and tell me about your story.
No. And you know what? That's why I'm Mrs. Enough.
Let's put a beautiful picture of you guys here. Look at that.
Oh, my hair looks so good, huh?
Look at that. You guys are beautiful.
Thanks. Oh,
Come on now. Come on. I had read that you interned over at Rolling Stone.
It was an unofficial internship. Yeah, like if Rolling Stone hears this and they want to get on my case about it, no, I'm being very honest with this. It was an unofficial internship. Essentially, I was 16 years old and ended up in their offices in New York because I was lying about my age. I was underage, lying about my age, going on tour with pretty major names in the industry and interviewing them without having ever heard about the story of Almost Famous. Eventually, I had gotten in contact with Cameron Crowe. I'm getting it all out there, Troy.
Look at this.
Yeah. So Cameron Crowe backed me up saying, I'll back you up wherever you want to go in life, kid. And I thought, I'm going to go to Rolling Stone. So when I contacted Jason Fine, the music editor of Rolling Stone, he said, okay, well, come say hi whenever you're in town. So what did I do? I got on a bus the next day, skipped school, and I ended up in their offices. So Kevin O'Donnell, I think he's the chief editor. I forget. He's the top. What, right? There's Jason Fine, the music editor, and then there's Kevin O'Donnell, the main guy. I don't think he's there anymore, but they kind of took me under their wing for a little bit, and I would go back and forth from Western Massachusetts, where I lived, to Manhattan, where the offices were, and they would teach me things. And I would hang out with the actual interns who were in the offices, and they would show me stuff like sidebar content and how they formatted stuff.
You mentioned Almost Famous. Here's a picture of you on the left.
Yeah.
And Kate Hudson on the right for the movie. I mean, the glasses are the same. But I mean, do you ever have people go, you kind of look like Kate Hudson a little bit? And then the story, when I was reading about the Rolling Stones, I was like, that's almost kind of parallel. It's art imitating life, imitating art.
Yes.
You're very much your own being, though. You know what I mean? You're not a Kate Hudson clone, but it's interesting that you guys have kind of a similar look and sort of a parallel story to that movie. So
yeah, and my thing with that is that I truly was not trying to copy anyone. I was actually on tour with Ashley Simpson and her keyboardist Lucy Walsh, whose dad plays in the Eagles, by the way, Joe Walsh.
Okay.
She told me that you remind me of Penny Lane. I said, who's that? She said, have you ever seen Almost Famous? No, I haven't. So I went home, watched it, could not believe that. Yeah, I got that too.
Wow. Yeah, that's so trippy. That the similarity to the story.
Mm-hmm.
There's another facet of you that you're doing like amateur boxing or something.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about this. Look at you.
Yeah.
What is going on there? Like, this is another layer of Kale Doty. Kate here, my guest on this any other radio show, and we are talking. We're kind of shifting gears now out of the True Tale of Mr. Bone, which is the book about Jack Russell, the rock and roll narrative, and you took all the stories and put them pen to paper and made them make sense. I wonder real quick, diving back into that, if Jack can kind of go back and read the book and kind of like, relive those stories in a way that's a little bit more organized and go, wow, I can't believe that, this was my life, because it's him telling the story and then the book gets to tell him the story again.
So I actually read him the whole manuscript. Yeah, okay. I read him the whole book. I read him chapter by chapter because I wasn't going to put something out that he wasn't okay with. So I very specifically like, okay, Jack, we got, chapters 1 through 4 done. So let's tackle them. So yeah, I would read for as long as we could all handle because I would lose my voice. And after a while, every word just sounded the same. But I read the whole book to him. He heard it.
Wow. All right, let's get back to boxing. Tyson or Jake Paul, who wins?
Tyson.
All right. Okay. That's my girl. Tell me, so what's up with this boxing? What's going on? I mean, are you like on the circuit or are you just kind of in the gym?
Listen. Okay. So I'm back in school for fitness and nutrition, right? Holistic nutrition, but with a focus on fitness. So I'm so curious about all these different modes of fitness. So earlier this year, January 2024, I took a kickboxing class and, I was like, all right, let's see what this is all about. And it took no time. I hit that bag and something just erupted. And I needed to fight. I knew I needed to fight. And I don't think anyone at this gym I was going to believe me or took me seriously, but I kept asking them, all the time, hey, where can I fight? How can I fight? How do I sign up? How do I get involved? So finally, I found a fight coach who's actually 2 minutes from my house. I can train up to 5 days a week, sometimes twice a day if I want to. I'm registered as an amateur boxer with USA Boxing. My first fight is potentially November, so it's just a few months from now. Maybe you want to jump in here because I could talk forever.
Well, no, so are you going to be in the ring boxing another girl?
Yes.
What weight class are you in? Are you a featherweight?
So I know that I will be boxing. I'll be fighting at 106. And right now I'm between 110 and 113, which is really frustrating. I just feel like I have to stop eating at this point.
I think my leg weighs 113 pounds.
I was going to say, I think I might be, no, not a featherweight. No, it's not a featherweight.
You got to know what weight class you're in if you're going to be doing this.
I knew what it was, but I think it's different than what I just randomly Googled. All I know is my fight coach said you're fighting at 106.
Gotcha. All right. Well, you're going to have to drop some LBs then.
Yes.
My goodness. Yeah. Jeez. Don't blow away, Kate. Are you excited about that? I mean, you're going to wear head protect. I mean, you know, you got to, as Chip would say, you got a beautiful mug, you know, and we don't want to damage that. Are you a little nervous about that?
No, this is so interesting, right? It's funny how you just spent a lot of time asking me about me as a writer, and now we're shifting gears, and now you see like a completely different person, right?
Yeah.
I don't care. I spent 17 years of my life working in adult entertainment, and no one took anything that I did seriously. Seriously. That's the first thing they heard is, wow, you work in the sex industry. Cool. They didn't care that I went to Oxford. They didn't care that I've been in a recording studio since I was 11 years old and have worked with some of the biggest people on the planet. So if this gets hit, I don't care. I've been there and I've done that. Hit it. And you know what? Let me hit you, because there's a lot more where this came from. And I've spent a lifetime of people taking things from me and stealing and ripping me off. If I throw one punch and I give it to them, you can have so many more.
Well, thoughts and prayers to the girl you're going to box in November.
Okay.
I wish her well. You mentioned the industry. We talked about it a little bit earlier. You know, I was unfamiliar. I know that you were doing something. You were, you know, Playboy or something, trying to get into one of the spreads. But you have an extensive time in the industry, which I was unaware of. You know, this is all the stuff driving in the minivan with Johnny Monaco, either monitoring my gas pedal use or him driving, you know, yelling at other cars. This is all stuff while you're in the back seat I was unaware of. So tell me a little bit about that. I didn't know. Were you a dancer or just a model?
Okay, so my main gig, I was an exotic dancer, but I have a professional dance background. I think, by the way, that's why boxing is something I'm taking on so well, is because as a professional dancer in ballet, you really have to know your body. You get to know your body. So I was an exotic dancer, and the first month or two of working in the industry, I worked at Shotgun Willie's in Denver, Colorado. I entered a celebrity lookalike contest, and I performed as Dita Von Teese on stage.
Ah, okay.
I won. So the club gave me a headlining position, and as I do with all things, I take it to the next level. So I decided to go back to ballet. I started training with Colorado Ballet, Cirque du Soleil, and I became a showgirl. And I ended up performing a lot in Vegas. They were private shows. They were little shows. But I mean, quite frankly, if you end up on stage in Vegas, you've done pretty well for yourself. And looking back on it, I go, did pretty good there, Kate. Yeah. And then because rock and roll was my thing, and I was always requesting 80s rock, I ended up performing on stage with Steel Panther, for instance, when they were up and coming. I performed on stage with Rob Zombie, just kind of thrown on stage to move around. But that's where my rock and roll and dancer world really came together.
They collide. Wow, that's cool. These are all facets of you I didn't know until I started reading about you to come on the show and the whole background. So, you know, you're a musician yourself. I have a song which we'll play after we wrap the interview on the radio show at dirtyradio.fm. You can click the cassette for Dirty Radio Classics. You can also stream the show live at drummertroy.com. And my guest is K.O. Doty here, author, dancer, fixer-upper, everything, married to Chips Enough. And because you're also a musician, songwriter, have you and Chip ever done, you know, collaborated on anything or a duet, or is there a chance of that in the future? I mean, why not? You guys, I mean, he's got the studio there.
Yeah.
He's got the pipes, as he says.
The chance is always there. It's totally always there. It's funny because when I got together with Chip initially, of course, the rumors were, oh, she's just a groupie. She's just with him, you know, to get some perks out of the industry. I never once asked him to help me with my music. You would think that it would have happened a long time ago. But we haven't done anything together in terms of a duet. No.
Well, I just threw that grenade at you, Chip. Get that girl in the studio and start working on stuff.
Right.
So you've got boxing, a match potentially in November.
2 matches, yeah.
2 Oh my goodness, not the same day though, right?
Oh heck no.
Do you have a record yet? I mean, have
No.
you? No. Okay, so this will be your debut. Oh, we got to hear about that. Make sure you post, and if it's streaming anywhere, we want to see it. We'll share. Are you gonna be? Is it in Chicago?
Yeah, it would be. I'm fighting at 106, I said, and I have 2 fights in November, which is kind of unheard of, but it's because that's a really small weight class, and there's like 2 or 3 other women in that weight division.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, you might have to move up to, I don't know if it's let's see, there's featherweight. Is it welterweight? I mean,
no, bro, I'm not gaining weight.
You're not gaining weight. Oh, well, I mean, but what's going to happen when you knock the other 2 chicks out and then that's it? You'll have the belt. You're done. To be seen. To be seen. Right. KL Doty, Kate, thanks so much for coming on the show. Is there anything that I didn't cover that I should have covered that I missed? I feel like we went into the rearview mirror. We went to the windshield about what's happening forward in your future. Talked about all the good, this, that, and the other, bad and uglies. What did I miss? Well, we want to talk about how we can get the book, of course, right? Which we'll do that there.
JackRussellBook.com. There you go. That's where you get the book.
And then we can do another one. What is your website?
My website, which needs a little work, I'm not going to lie, kldoty.com. Very basic.
All right. And see, look, this is how professional we are on this show. We can do that. Boom. Right. Amazing. And then, of course, we can find you on all the socials, and there's links from that website.
KL Doty Official.
Gotcha. So is there anything that you feel that you need to say that maybe I didn't ask in my unprofessional manner?
Have you not figured that out? There's probably something. Yeah. Maybe there will be a next time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're always welcome to come on if this audiobook happens. If D. Snyder, wants too much money, hey, I'll read a couple excerpts.
Okay, we'll braid each other's hair in the studio. We'll
Absolutely.
braid it together.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on this show, and it was a lot of fun. And when I heard that you were the author and writing this book and taking these stories and organizing them, making sense out of them, and going through probably a lot of emotions with Jack, I was like, wow, I had no idea that was something, because it sounds like a massive undertaking. I mean, really, just preparing for this show, as you can see, I'm very unprepared, but I put a lot of work just in doing this. I mean, look at it.
You're doing a great job.
I have this button here. I can click, the book. I mean, this takes I can't imagine organizing 50 years of this guy's life.
I will tell you all of the notes that I have, I should have pulled them up just to throw them up in the air like dollar bills to celebrate the old days, right? Yeah. Throw them up in the air so you guys could see what I have. But I would love to do an art show, frame each one of those notes, and have y'all come see what I really had to go through. And last thing from me, my biggest advice for writing a book, don't do it.
It's like when people say, hey, Troy, do you have any advice for young rock and rollers? And it's like, yeah, stay in school. Don't
right.
Play drums with your friends in the garage and do the music. Just don't do the business part of it, because that'll always leave you disappointed. Kate, it's so great to see you. I appreciate you coming on the show, the Set and the Other radio show. We did a special date and time for you on a Monday. If you are tuned in right now at Dirty Radio Classics and you're like, what the hell is going on? I missed some of the interview. It will rebroadcast during our normal time slot on Wednesday from 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then, of course, on the Saturday replay at 5 p.m. Pacific. I appreciate you coming on the show. JackRussellBook.com. Go get it. And for your author right there, KODoty.com. Kate, thanks so much for coming on. It's great to see you.
You too.
Send my love to Chippy Poo.
I
mean, let's watching Chip. I hail you. You know that, bro. I grew up on Enough's Enough, being in Northwest Indiana as a teenager. I'd go see them at Club Dimensions, and I remember going to see them at a softball park. They played like during the day, and Vic Fox threw me a stick. I still had that stick, but those guys were my cheap trick, So I've had some moments to play with Chip and Donnie, sometimes together. We did a thing for Janie Lane, and I somehow weaseled my way on the stage, and we played a couple songs. It's on YouTube. That was the first time in a long time that those guys were together on stage, and they're both out there separately doing their own thing, but representing Enough's Enough in the music that they wrote, and that's always been a fascinating thing. So send my love to Chippy Poo. He's a big part of my life.
Of course.
So great to see you, and thanks for coming on. And I hope you had fun. Was it fun?
Yes. Can you see all the sweat on my face, though? Oh, there's no air conditioning in my room.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you look great and you sound greater. And, hey, I mean, listen, at least we're not in a car with eating food, right? That was an interesting interview.
Those were good times.
I love it. I was like, this guy's got microphones in his car, and you guys are, I was like, because I checked out some of the other interviews you did for the book, and they were fun. So I appreciate you coming on here, and best of luck with the Jack Russell book. We're going to put that thing right there. You can get it on Amazon. Apparently, a lot of people are, as well as Barnes & Noble. And I'm going to let you go. Kate, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Love and miss you, and all the best to you, okay?
Ditto.
All right, take care. There she goes. This, that, and the other radio show, Dirty Radio.fm Channel 2, Dirty Radio Classics. If you can see the way I look right now, you know why I do a radio show and not this YouTube thing. But I appreciate her coming on this, that, and the other radio show. I'm going to continue the live show at Dirty Radio.fm Channel 2, Dirty Radio Classics. You can also stream from drummertroy.com. as I get out of here on the YouTube. So I'm going to say goodbye to you all. If you want to continue listening to some rock and roll, I'll be on for another hour. And then this show in its entirety will replay from 2 to 5 p.m. on Wednesday, and then 5 to 8 p.m. on the Saturday replay. Coming up in just a minute, we've got the Metal Babe Minute and much, much more here at This, That, and the Other Radio Show. To all of you on Facebook, YouTube, and yada, 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 thanks so much for checking out the show. KL Doty, appreciate you coming on and talking the Jack Russell book. All right, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to end the stream. I'm going to kick myself out of the room, remove